Hi, and welcome to the U World Order Showcase podcast, where we feature life, health, transformational coaches and spiritual entrepreneurs stepping up to be the change they seek in the world. I'm your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist, on a mission to help coaches and entrepreneurs amplify their voice, monetize their mission, and get visible, leveraging podcasts and our huge audience over on the Gnostic TV network. Today, we are chatting with Dr. Deborah Vinall. She is a licensed mental health therapist and psychologist with a passion for helping people heal, cultivate self-compassion, and build meaningful connections. And she's the author of Gaslighting, a step-by-step recovery guide, and Trauma Recovery Workbook for Teens. It's two separate books. I know it kind of squished them together, so it might have been a little confusing for you. Welcome to the show, Deborah. It's been great to have you here.
It's wonderful to be with you today.
So I'm going to ask you the big question. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. What's the most significant thing, in your opinion, as individuals we can do to make an impact on how the world is going?
That it is such a big question, and especially right now where the world feels for a lot of people like it's sort of spiraling out of control, and we really want to take big actions, and that is important and necessary, but it also can leave a lot of people feeling really helpless as well because you might not feel that you have the influence to make big actions. But I think to answer your question, it really starts small. It really does. To fundamentally change the world, we have to start with our micro circles, with our families, or if our close knit people that were around us. So much of what goes wrong in the world, whether that is people who are abusive, people who assault others, people who are narcissists that control, take power and suppress others, all of it really, when we go down, 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 we find some really dysfunctional childhoods in each individual. And so, to really make the world a better place, we have to look at how we're impacting our own families. For those that become parents, really being intentional about how we interact with our children, about supporting them when there's wounds with effective trauma recovery, preventing those kinds of things by being really intentional. That will have ripple effects into the world as we raise up and become healthy individuals so that we can see others with compassion, with empathy, rather than looking at the world in a hierarchical manner in which we're trying to climb a ladder by stepping down on others. That's the root of all suffering, is this hierarchical approach. Again, so if we can cultivate within ourselves the kind of peace and compassion that sees everybody for the worth and value that they have, then live that out 1% at a time, that will fundamentally change the world.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's really all about healing as individuals ourselves so that we can impact. We just, when you heal, everybody has trauma. It's just like you don't get through childhood without some kind of trauma.
You can't get through
Most
this.
of it isn't intentional. It just happens because children have children and they're broken to begin with too.
Right?
So as we're moving into this age where people are becoming aware that we all have trauma and really looking at for tools to heal these deep wounds that you know, you may think that, oh, my childhood wasn't so bad, but just an innocuous comment that was made by somebody that had authority over you probably changed the whole trajectory of your life when you weren't even looking.
Yeah, the negative words and assaults that we hear can become deeply ingrained narratives about ourselves that become very self-limiting. We might not think of them as major traumas, but they really can limit us and impact how we treat others as well.
Yeah, and it does come back to treating others, but when you're sitting in a position where you're vibrating at a certain frequency based on the trauma that you've experienced, and you move into this almost unconsciously, you become a vibrational match for other people that are wounded the same way you are. And
Mhm.
so your life just becomes this mirror of, back and forth, there's wounds, and you're hurting each other, but you're not even really aware that, gosh, I'm doing this. And then if you can find somebody to help kind of pull you into the next level of vibration away from that group, then you start to heal and you start to attract other people that are also healing, and then it just you keep moving up and then we're all vibrating on a healthier level where we can not just be messing with these wounds that are like we just keep hurting each other instead of helping each other and exploring the beautiful things of the world instead of the painful things.
Yeah, we absolutely gravitate toward people who see the world in the same way that we do. It's why you see people clustering together politically or religiously, and we might endorse well, some of us endorse the idea of diversity being a positive, and yet we still cluster together with people who are like-minded. And so what you're talking about there within mental health and within trauma wounding, you're right. We gravitate toward people who might have similar experiences because we have a sense of you get me and I get you. But it can create codependency, which is when you kind of have two broken people leaning on each other, like sort of supporting each other in that broken place.
Right.
And yet there's this idea of surround yourself with the people who are who you want to be, right? If because we become like our closest circle. So if you surround yourself with people who inspire you, it might be uncomfortable. You might have some imposter syndrome or feel like I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, and that's those negative messagings that we need to work through. But when you can push yourself sometimes, not to neglect anybody who's ever had wounding, we don't want to be those kinds of people either, but to also pull into your orbit or put yourself into places with people who inspire you, at least one person that will, like you said, kind of raise your vibration to that place and allow you to grow.
And then you allow you open yourself up to allowing others to come in and also help you make different decisions about your life and how it's going because you are vibrating on a different level. Different things become important to you, and things that were really important to you in the wound, they just kind of go away. It's not to minimize whatever happened. It's just, it's not the focus anymore. And really what you focus on grows in your environment.
True. At the same time, like real traumas can become very stuck and very limiting if we try to just ignore them and move past them. And that's where it becomes really important to be honest with yourself and be direct and really face those wounds. I always think about like that little children's book, like going on a bear hunt, right? Where it's like, we can't go over it, we can't go under it, we'll have to go through it. Um, and that's really true when it comes to trauma and to grief, right? Like we can't just skip over it. We can't just, we'd love to be on the other side, but the only way to get to the other side is to go through it, to face those things that have really hurt us, and to that might involve trauma therapy. It just involves being really honest with yourself, and then healing really is possible so that you're not living your life through the lens of these hard things that happened. You said something earlier about how we might, like everybody's been through some trauma, but we always say, oh, well, mine wasn't so bad. And that's totally true that people are always minimizing, well, it wasn't as bad as so and so. And I mean, my specialty as a psychotherapist is working with trauma. And I hear this over and over. And I've worked with people who have been through such horrific things, sex trafficking, and they'll say, well, it wasn't as bad as so and so. And I think this is comical. Even the people who would be, I mean, I'm not laughing at them, obviously, but even the people who would be somebody else's example are still finding somebody who's had it worse, because you always can find that. But that doesn't help you heal. And it doesn't
Mhm.
help anybody. It doesn't help the person who's been through something worse either. What you have to do is just be honest with yourself that the things in your life that have caused you pain and that continue to cause you pain, even though they're historical events, um, are worthy of compassion, your own self-compassion, so that you can address and heal from them.
And you are worthy of compassion. I
Mhm.
mean, the whole idea that, somebody else had it much worse than me, I'm totally fine. No, own the trauma. It's yours. You deserve to heal.
Yeah.
You are worthy of healing. And that somebody else had it better or worse than I did, that's just a mirror of the idea that, well, because somebody else is worse off than me, I don't deserve to heal myself. We better work on them.
And holding on to your trauma doesn't elevate them, it doesn't heal them. all you really have control over is yourself. And
Yeah.
so every seed that's planted of healing, every step we take toward our own liberation creates more room for love and grace and compassion and help to everybody else in the world as well. So you have to start with yourself.
Yeah, I so see that. So you do help people with this. This is what you do,
Yeah.
right? And how does that look when you're helping people?
So the two main avenues through which I work to help people with trauma are through my private practice, where like I said, I specialize in trauma work, and through my writing. So you mentioned a couple of the books that.
Hey all, I'm Jill Hart. We all know that legal matters can be costly and stressful. Finding the right representation and dealing with high retainers and hourly bills adds up fast. But what if I told you there was a way to have legal insurance, just like your health or auto insurance? Well, Legal Shield has leveled that playing field. From just $29.95 a month, you get access to lawyers for personal legal matters, from traffic tickets to real estate issues or even trust matters. Help is just a tap away on your phone. Call or text 435-764-0875 and use the code JillLegal or start your journey to legal protection today.
I've published so far, and I'm working on a third one right now with my agent and writing on Substack. So I'm trying to, I work one on one with people, and then I'm trying to give, in a very accessible way, some healing words to people who might not be able to access therapy with or with me, or sometimes with anybody, because you can buy a book for 15 or 20 bucks a lot easier than you can necessarily afford weekly therapy for some people, where that might be a limitation. So I really like having that diversity of approach. So yeah, my private practice, I work in Southern California and online, but I work with California residents only because that's where my license is.
Okay, so that makes total sense, but you can still talk to people, and Substack's a great place for that to happen.
Yeah, and it's really in a kind of an amazing community, I think, for the most part. I have had to block some trolls, as we all do, but for the most part, there's so many warm-hearted people searching out for connection and like-mindedness, and finding encouragement from one another, and giving it as well. So I'm really appreciating what the community is that's developing there.
Yeah, especially lately, it just seems like it's blossoming into this amazing platform for connections, and it's really it's really personal. It's not like, Facebook, where you do drive-bys, or LinkedIn, which is all business,
Mhm.
or even Instagram, which is, hey, look at me.
Yeah, yeah. There's a real egalitarianism to it in a way, because like you said, it's not just photos of like where we first judge what you look like. It's ideas, it's a forum, and it's
Mhm.
not just like Twitter or Blue Sky, where you can only give snippets, because you have both the short form in the notes part, but also the long form essay of subscription. So I think it's a pretty unique place.
I do too. So, how do you heal trauma in therapy? How does that look?
Like I said, one of the most important things is being honest with yourself and being willing to face what it is, to name what it is that you've gone through. Two of the trauma therapies that I am certified in and specialize in are just incredible. EMDR, which stands for Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing, and Brainspotting, which is about 20 years newer and developed out of EMDR originally. They're both
Mhm.
subcortical neurological approaches, which sounds kind of nerdy, but to break that down, when we think of therapy, we often think about talking. Trauma is stored in a very deep way in the brain. It's stored in a very sensory way in our bodies, in our
Mm.
and in our five senses. Like if you think about somebody perhaps who's been through a car accident, when those memories come back, they come back in real time. They come as in like a sense that it's happening right now, right? So that's what a flashback is, or nightmares.
Mhm.
They come back with the sound of like brakes squealing and glass crunching, right? And the visual, like little short snippets of visuals of like the headlights coming at you. So all these sensory aspects. So when we just talk about something, we're analyzing it, but that's not what trauma is, right? It's that sensory stuff. So we want to, and that's our senses are more like that reptilian part of the brain. That's the subcortical part, more automatic. When something terrible is happening to you, you feel like it seems like you're about to die in that car accident or whatever the trauma was. You're not analyzing it. You're not thinking. Am I going to die? Have I lived a good life? Like, you're reacting from that core fight or flight reptilian survival part of the brain. So we need to activate that part of the brain to heal it. Otherwise, we're just talking in circles around it while those deep sensory memories remain stuck. So that's where EMDR or brain spotting come into play. So in those modalities, we tap into the feeling of the event, in the body, in the emotions, whatever kind of sensory fragments are coming back. And then we engage either eye movement with EMDR or a fixed visual spot in your visual field with brain spotting that taps into these feelings and fragments. And it's a lot quieter. There's less talking. There's more sitting with. And then bilateral stimulation is added in. So bilateral meaning side to side. So with EMDR, you might be looking at visual stimulation that's going back and forth across your visual field, or you might get it be doing some kind of a tactile stimulation, like tapping on alternate hands or arms, like this. With brain spotting, we use music that's designed to go from one earphone to the other. So in that way, you're activating both left and right brain. So you're not just staying in the logical. And it's also very soothing to the nervous system. So we're soothing the nervous system while we're bringing up the activating thing, and allowing that to be worked through in a really safe environment. But before we dive into any of those processes, we start by creating safety. Sometimes we work with people who've been through something like the example I gave. That's what we call a simple trauma, like something that happened once. Maybe you've had an easy life, got in a car accident on your way back to college at 19. And sometimes I work with somebody who's grown up with complex lifelong trauma. Perhaps they've been sexually abused from the time they were 3 years old by their stepfather, something like that. And the traumas came at a time where they really hadn't matured enough to develop coping skills. And how do you cope with something like that? And so it's really become deeply ingrained in their personality, and there's just never been a sense of safety in their life to tap into. So the idea of going back to those memories and those feelings is absolutely overwhelming. So we're going to start by developing a sense of safety in therapy, about developing self-regulation skills, coping skills, grounding skills, so that you don't dissociate the first time we start talking about the hard thing. And dissociation is kind of when you sort of feel that sense of floating out of your body, you're not really being present in in where you are at the time. So we're gonna go more slowly when there's been more complex trauma, but we're always going to make sure that the person that you in therapy have some ability to self-regulate, so that not only is the therapy session not flooding, you're not leaving my office, going home, and then completely falling apart, and then you're on your own. So the pacing also is really going to be very individual.
Interesting. And so how do people get in touch with you if they wanted to? Well, let me ask you about the Decision Tree Worksheet first. So tell us about that.
Yeah, on my website, which is DeborahVinall.com. When you go there, you'll have an option to get a free Decision Tree Worksheet, which is a tool I created within my first book, Gaslighting: A Step-by-Step Recovery Guide. And you can just get that as like a PDF from my website. So that is for helping people to determine, if you're in a toxic or abusive relationship, what steps you want to take. Because there's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Whether this person is your mom and you're an adult, or your husband and you've got kids, or your boy, like it all depends on your life circumstances. And so the decision tree kind of walks you through, like any decision tree does, yes, no, if, then, to help you kind of come to an idea of what are some steps you might want to take, whether it's setting more boundaries, or leaving, or making a plan to figure out what's maybe help you decide for yourself what's best for you in your situation. Nobody else is the expert in your life but you, but it can be kind of helpful to sort through your thoughts and your decision making. And there's also a second resource available on my website, which is a trauma checklist for teens, which was developed for my trauma recovery workbook, which is just a very user-friendly worksheet to kind of determine if maybe what your mental health struggles are connected to perhaps trauma or PTSD.
Interesting, interesting. And so people can find that on your website, but they can also find your books on your website.
Yes, yeah, and there's links to purchase them from your favorite retailer as well. So both Gaslighting, a step-by-step recovery guide, and the Trauma Recovery Workbook for Teens, and you can stay tuned for announcements about my next book there as well.
Share the name, or are you not there yet?
I don't know if I'm supposed to release it yet. I have to stay in consultation with my agent. But I will give you a spoiler that this one is focusing on the experience of feeling like a misfit and the search for belonging in the world.
I hardly wait for that to come out. And so where can people find you on Substack? Also, let's give a plug out to that.
Yeah,
Can they find Substack on
sure.
through your website?
Oh, I think so. I think all my socials are linked there. But to Substack, it's D Vinall. So my first initial D for Deborah, and then Vinall at Substack.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today, Deborah.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been lovely chatting with you.
And to my listeners, please be sure to visit drdeborahvinall.com to get her books, book time with her, or to get the Decision Tree Worksheet, or what was the other worksheet?
The trauma symptom checklist.
The trauma symptom checklist. And thank you for tuning in with us today. If you have a podcast or you're interested in starting one to get your message in front of our huge and active audience, be sure to reach out to us at jill@gnostictv.com. We love to help spiritual entrepreneurs and coaches amplify their voice and monetize their mission, and offer a variety of ways to do this on the Gnostic TV network platform. Join us for our next episode as we share what others are doing to raise the global frequency. And remember, change begins with you. You have all the power to change the world. Start today and get visible.